everyone. કેમ છો અમદાવાદ? Very great. Okay, so my name is Bhoomi. This is my first time in Devfest Ahmedabad, and I must say that the energy is just superb. I really love the vibes of Ahmedabad and how you are so interactive with the speakers. So today, this is little bit about me. I'm an Android application developer working as a freelancer. Apart from that, I am technical author in Android Code Embed Academy and working on the Jetpack Compose course. I really love to share my knowledge with others. So I write a blog, give the talk in the community, and also support women in tech. So today, I will be discussing about Jetpack Compose architecture pattern and how these both can be combined together to build a Jetpack Compose application. Jetpack Compose. So how many of you are using XML and Jetpack Compose? Great. Smart audience who are using Compose. Great. The slide is not changing. So Jetpack Compose is a modern UI toolkit to build a native UI. If you know the history about the Android development, firstly there was the XML with Java, then the Kotlin came, and then the Jetpack Compose came, and it just changed everything. For the very first time, when I saw the demo at Google I/O, I was very excited about it. I couldn't believe how thousands lines of traditionally written recycler view was going to be replaced with just few lines of XML Jetpack Compose codes. So these are the features of Compose. That is declarative UI. We focus on what to build rather than how to build. It's a reactive. It just reacts immediately or based on the state. You don't have to check for the updates whether it is changed or not. It just changes immediately. It is entirely built in Kotlin. The most important part, it is entirely built in Kotlin. You do not need to write the XML code. Everything is written in Kotlin. State management, everything is done using the state in Compose. State is the most important part of Compose. So this was about Compose. Let's talk about the real world. Who is using it in the real world? Which are the apps that are using Compose? ChatGPT, the one of the most used app right now, ChatGPT. It is using Compose. Threads, 90% of the UI of Threads is built using Compose, and they just built this application in just 5 months. It's a very less time, and it's a really amazing thing that they entirely built the app using Compose. X communities is built entirely using Compose, and it took just 50% less time to build in the iOS or web. Play Store rewrote the entire UI with just 50% less code. Dropbox, Lyft, Zapato, Airbnb, Pinterest, there are multiple apps that are using Compose. So these are the proofs. I have used the library checker app to check which apps are using the Compose, and ChatGPT, as you can see, is using the Compose. Google Play Store is using the Compose. Even the Richard, who is the Android developer at Meta, have posted this that they have entirely created the app using using Compose. So let's talk about the architecture pattern. How many of you are using architecture pattern? MVC, MVP? Almost all? Great. And have you worked with a large scale application? Anyone? Okay. So when we build a real-time app, there might be a need to change our app. It may grow in size. There might be a need to add the features. There might be a need to modify the feature. There might be a need to remove the features as well. So that's when the architecture come into the picture. Architecture pattern is a way to organize your project in a very structured manner. So, so that you can focus on every single part and test it very well. So architecture pattern make our code more simple, scalable, maintainable, testable. And by doing so, we can achieve the main thing of the architecture pattern, that is separation of concern and the no hard dependency. Separation of concern means you focuses on what it required to do. Hello. Okay. So architecture pattern is a way to organize your project, and there are the main focus and the core principle of architecture pattern is the separation of concern and no hard dependency. Every component should do what it required to do. It should not depend on any other component, and it should be more independent. There are other things as well, like solid principle, reusability, single source of truth. These all are the things that we are achieved using architecture pattern. So these are some common architecture pattern: MVC, MVP, MVVM, and MVI. Let's talk about MVC, one of the oldest architecture pattern, and I think that you all have used it, model view controller. Here view and controller and model are there, and controller is the intermediate between view and model. Here the view and controller are tightly coupled, and view needs controller to do his work.
Yeah. As we say, कोई भी event technical glitch के बिना successful नहीं होता है. So sorry for that, but we have to wait for a couple of minutes until the screen shows up.
So till then, let's talk about the Android, native Android, and the Flutter. How many of you are using native Android? Flutter? I think Flutter community is huge. Sorry? What? Flutter community? I am not using Flutter, but as much as I know, like Flutter is the getting very popular in these last 3 to 4 years. Everyone is shifting from native to the Flutter because it provides the Android and iOS code together in just one code. So it's easy for the client as well. Suppose someone want to create an app for the Android and iOS, they can create in a less time. Why should they need to learn the Android and iOS separately? That's why. Yeah. Okay. So here view, controller and model, view and controller type tightly coupled with each other, and view needs controller to do his work. So here the goal is not satisfied because we want that every component should be independent. Here view and controller are tightly coupled. So the goal is not satisfied, and so there is another architecture pattern coming to the picture, that is MVP. Model, view, and presenter. So instead of controller, here we will use the presenter. Presenter will be a simple class where we will write our application logic. and the presenter will interact with the view using the interface. It will not directly interact with view, so that both can be independent from each other. Here the drawback is the lots of code in presenter, and also there is lots of method in interface if we have a really large application. And to solve that, again we have the MVVM, the most popular architecture right now, and also Google is recommending to use the MVVM. A model, view model. So here view is responsible for displaying the UI, model is responsible for managing the data, and view model holds the observables. Here what happens is view will not directly interact with view model, but view model will have the observables that view will observe. So here this is the most famous diagram of MVVM. Here in the view we will have the activity, in the view model we have the live data. If you know about the Android architecture component, live data is one of them. And in the model we have the repository, and repository will be in two parts, like it will get the data from data source which is local, and it may get the data from the API as well. View notifies the view model about different action, but view has reference to the view model, but view model does have no information about view. View model doesn't know if there is view exist or not. Here the view is the consumer and the view model is producer. Hello? It's still working. Wow. मैम कुछ गेम खेल ले?
हाँ यार, अब तो गेम ही खेल लेते हैं. Oh, it's back. कोई नहीं, सेशन के बाद गेम खेलेंगे.
हाँ. Okay guys, so which architecture pattern you are using? How many of you are using MVVM? Most of the people, right? MVI? No? Just a few. MVP? Very few. MVC? Okay, the old code maybe. So people who are using MVI, okay. So here we have the view model. Here we are using the live data, then initially we are fetching the items from the network, and as you can see, view model have no reference of the view. There is nothing related to view that view model can know that this is the view. This is our view, and it is composable. So as you can see, there is a reference of view model. We are just observing the view model items using observe as a state method. So view has reference to the view model, but view model has no information about the view. Here the problem with MVVM is there is a different state that we need to work on while working with the application. For example, if I am fetching some data from network, that might be a loading state, that might be a content state, and that might be a error state as well. So to handle the different state, there is no good proper way in the MVVM, and for that we have to create the live data for every single state. So here I need to create live data for each loading, content data, and error data. So it's not a good practice to do so. If I have 5 to 10 state, I can't create the live data for everyone. And to solve that, again, we have the model view intent, the latest in the MV star band in the architecture pattern. MVI is a model view intent, which is a reactive architecture pattern. MVI is a reactive architecture pattern. Here, intent doesn't mean the Android intent that we are using to communicate between the component in Android. It's the intention of doing some action by the user. For example, clicking a button, writing a text, or doing any interaction with the UI. So it's the intention of the user. Model is a in other architecture pattern, we use the model to manage the data. But here the model represents the state of the UI, which holds the immutable state. Immutable state in sense that once you create a state, there is no way to change or update the state. You have to create the new instant every single time when the state is updated. So it's a different from other architecture pattern. Here if we see the flow, user trigger an action, any action like clicking a button, so it will create the intent. Intent will be sent to the model. Model will handle that intent, process the intent, change the state or data, whatever is needed, and at that way it will expose the data to the view. So view will observe the state and update its UI as necessary. So you see everything is happening in just one direction. It's the unidirection data flow. Everything in just happen in one direction. So MVI is a reactive. It have a unidirection data flow. Also it represents the state in a better way. Here, as I told you the problem about MVVM, here for the different state, I can create it in just one stilled class. If you know Kotlin, you know what stilled class is. So we create these three different state in the one class only. So it's a better way to manage the state. This was all about different architecture pattern. Now let's combine. Let's see which architecture pattern will fit best with the Compose. MVC and Jetpack Compose. How many of you think that this works? No one? Why? Anyone? Anyone don't know? Okay. So MVC is imperative. We are just getting the series of steps and method calls. And Compose is purely declarative. Both are opposite to each other, and that's why we can't work in this way. MVP and Compose? Anyone? Yes or no? Why? You say no, but you don't know the reason. Okay, let me tell you. In the MVI, what happens is to update the UI, presenter must have reference to the view. Okay, but what happens in Compose is composable function doesn't return any value. So we cannot provide the view reference to the presenter, and that's why we cannot use MVP with Compose. If you still want to use it, and if you already have an application with MVVM, MVP, and you can still use it, but it will be difficult to maintain because you can use the root view of the activity and pass it to the presenter, but it's not recommended to use for the long time. So again, it's not a good choice. MVVM with Compose. Yes, because we are using it, right? MVVM and Compose works very well together, and it is the most widely adopted architecture pattern with Compose. Compose integrates seamlessly with other Jetpack libraries as well. So here MVVM and Compose both are reactive and declarative. Compose itself is from Jetpack, and MVVM have a very Jetpack integration in a better way, like using the live data view model, state flow. So we can all combine together and build the best application. MVVM provides a structured way to manage and update the application state. So again, the state management is good if you have the less stat in Compose. Easy migration. If you are already using the MVVM in your view-based application, like if you are still using the XML and if you want to migrate to Compose, it will be very, very easy. Your view models largely stays the same. Only you need to change is your views. Like you need to remove the XML and you need to create the composable files. MVI in Compose? Yes or no? Yes. They also work best together because, as I told you, MVI has a unidirection data flow. Compose also have the unidirection data flow. Both have the immutable state properties. MVI is purely reactive and declarative. Also, Compose is declarative, reactive. So both are very combined well together. So best for large scale application. What do you think? Who is the winner for this? MVVM. How many of you think MVVM? And MVI? Both are the right. Both are the best. There is always a debate about MVVM with Compose or MVI with Compose. So it always depends. It depends on your use cases, it depends on your project requirements, it depends on your client requirement as well. Also, it depends on you and your team, how much learning curve you can face with which architecture pattern. So as per my opinion and as per my experience, I feel that MVVM works best with Compose. Because the way MVVM integrates well with Compose and the Jetpack library is just amazing. You can just seamlessly integrate Compose with MVVM. Still, if you want to use MVI, there are some cases, like if you want to work with the chat application where real-time data is very required, you need to stay updated with the latest data. Also the data-driven application where suppose you want to create an application related to financial trading app, then MVI will work for that. Also the George, which is the author of Jetpack Compose internal, have tweeted this and most of the people go with the MVVM. And MVI goes for the second rank as well. So this was all about the theoretical part. Let's see what problem we are facing while working with Compose with MVVM and MVI. What are the problems that we need to solve while working with this? So unnecessary recomposition. If you know Compose, you know there is a recomposition everywhere. Like you will see that recomposition keep keeping itself evolve around the Compose. So recomposition is a process in which composable re-execute itself again whenever its state is changed. So recomposition is required, okay, to run the application well and update itself. Recomposition is required, but unnecessary recomposition is very, very bad for the performance. Here this is the example. Here in the view model, to make the unnecessary recomposition, we use the remember for that. Here, as you can see, we are creating the state and we have doing some heavy calculation and we are putting the cache result value to the result. Here, as you can see, we have used the mutable state of. Here our composable file, we put the remember inside our, we put the cache results inside our remember. So what happens is this will prevent the unnecessary recalculation of the result every time when heavy calculation is calculated. So whenever the recomposition happens, this will prevent the heavy calculation, and it will help to make the performance better of the app. Side effect, use side effect. Side effect refers to any action that happens beyond our composable function. For example, making a network call, doing asynchronous work, or handling a callback. Any operation outside the composable is side effect. Suppose I am creating one side effect here. I am doing asynchronous operation in the performed asynchronous operation. This is my perform asynchronous operation. And in composable file, I use the launch effect. Launch effect is one of the side effect handler. For the very first time, when my composable is called, the launch effect will executed. Second time, when my composable is called, launch effect is only executed if result is changed. So this will prevent the unnecessary recomposition. So use the side effect whenever possible. Lazy loading. When we are working with a very large list, it is very important to keep optimize our lazy column and lazy rows. So if we work with the lazy column without the key, it will really perform better, not perform well, but with key it will perform better, because it will help composable function to find which item is changed, and it will only recompose whichever item is changed, rather than composing the whole list. State hoisting, as Adit Lal says, state hoisting is important, and it is a pattern that moves the state from its composable to its caller. So the goal of the state hoisting is to make the composable stateless. Using that, we can get the reusability, single source of truth, we can get the better performance. So the question when we build work with the large scale application is where to hoist the state. For that, we have some answers. For UI specific state, where the local variable is important, we put it inside the composable file. Here the is expanded is put in composable, because it's not required to put in view model, because it's a very local variable. For business logic and the data management, we put our logic inside the view model. Inefficient state management. For that, we need to avoid using mutable state of. Suppose this is my composable function. I have used remember and mutable state of, and I have the list of large number of items. Okay, so we cannot use this. This will really degrade the performance. So this we shouldn't do this. Instead of that, we should use the view model, and we should use the observe as state or collect as state. Observe as state is used with live data, and collect as state is used with the state flow. Always avoid direct view model access from composable. This is my mutable live data, this is my composable. I shouldn't directly do view model.item. It's not a better way to do so. Instead of that, you should always use these two lines. In the first line, we just declaring the variable private, and again we are getting that variable. So this way it will handle the encapsulation in better way. It will create the items read-only. So view model can only change the item. No any other component can change the item. So that's all. After this discussion, I just want to say that whatever architecture pattern you choose, the choice will be yours. There is no best architecture pattern. It will always depends on you, your requirement, your project requirement, your team, or whatever you say, but it always depends. The thing is, you should be clear about the core architecture pattern principles, that are separation of concern, reusability, solid principles, and the no hard dependency. So whatever architecture pattern you follow, you just make sure that the core principle always get followed and everything works well at the end. These are the resources that I have used while working with architecture pattern. You can also use that. There are some YouTube videos that is really well, and I have really followed this video. If you want to tag the picture, you can. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, GDG Ahmedabad, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you all the experts, professionals for listening me carefully and handle the glitch that happened between us. So no problem for that. Thank you.